All right, hello. We're gonna jump on in here. We got some attendees coming in. Go ahead and let me know that you can hear me. My name is Chelsea Cohen. I'm the co-founder of SoStock.com. See a lot of people flooding in. Fantastic. So I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. So type something in the chat, say hello, let me know where you're from, and also what you hope to get out of our webinar today. I know that we are right on the heels of the Q4 madness. Hi, Steve. Aloha from Maui. Maui is the one island that I've been to, and being originally from California, it actually turned me into a beach lover. I did not like the beaches. The beaches in California was not crazy about them, and all of a sudden, go to Maui and I find that I actually love the beach. The sand is amazing. All right. Hello. I'm actually going to throw up a quick poll while we have a couple more people come in. The poll is launching. I would like to know what inventory management system you are using. And then we will begin. Hi, everybody. If you have any questions, the best place to put your questions is in the Q&A. You can also put them in the chat, but the Q&A section helps us to kind of focus them in the right direction, the right area for me to look at. But go ahead and good, we're getting some answers. Okay, so we've got quite a few of you guys are using Excel. We've got you guys using SoStock, Restock Pro. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and get started. So feel free to ask some questions. We'll answer questions if they're relevant to what we're talking about. Otherwise, we'll save those till the end. We'll have a Q&A section. First and foremost, I just want to say hey and introduce myself. I'm going to actually go ahead and throw our slides up because we want to know what we're going to be talking about. Let's see. Okay, fantastic. Please let me know if you can see the slides. Type something into the chat. Okay, great. Fantastic. All right. So yeah, so we're going to be talking about inventory strategies for restock limits and supply chain chaos. Building inventory systems to maximize profit and avoid stockouts and overstocking. I'm going to be covering a few things. The things I'm going to be covering, I'm going to talk about key inventory systems that you need to develop in order to avoid stocking out and overstocking. So we'll touch on some of these best practices. We're also going to talk about restock limits. We're going to talk about what we need to understand about restock limits and the 3 triggers to pull if you do get into a stock out to avoid your restock limits crashing. I'm also very topically going to be talking about trucking hacks. This is extremely important. These are insider hacks that I got from a friend of mine who runs a 3PL warehouse. And so we will be getting into that. I truly believe that your vendors are one of your best allies. And if you're not talking to your vendors about what's happening across the supply chain, you're probably missing out on a lot of important information, which is what I'm going to be touching on about trucking. What are those things to avoid the check-in delays that we're all experiencing? Why is that happening? What can we do to avoid it? And it really does come down to understanding the trucking and the Amazon ecosystem and making the right decisions because you have the right data. And then I'm going to talk briefly about a solution that you can use to quickly implement these systems. And then we're going to get into some Q&As. I got a question, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. So I will be sending out the recording afterwards. So either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Cool. Okay, so just a bit about me. I have been selling on Amazon since 2014. 3 years ago, my business, I was feeling that the margins were shrinking and I wanted to stop the bleeding. So I wanted to figure out inventory management. So essentially, I immersed myself in inventory for the past 3 years. I've spoken to hundreds of 6, 7, and 8 figure sellers specifically on the subject of inventory as I onboarded them onto the Stock software. I've written over 50 articles on inventory and supply chain management in that time and been on dozens of podcasts. We have over 1,000 users now on Stock and are backed by top masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators now using the tool. So that's just a bit about me and why I'm talking to you about inventory. All right, so yes, like I said, in 2018, my profits were declining. I had experienced things like inventory getting lost until after Christmas, losing a bunch of money from that, losing income from stocking out for months at a time, paying thousands in storage and loan interest fees for inventory that I had over ordered. And all of these things were really affecting my bottom line, my profitability. So of course I looked for solutions. I tried to build my own system. It was too time consuming. There were other softwares that were too confusing or too expensive. They weren't calculating things right. They weren't allowing me to add my marketing plans into my calculations. Then I asked my mastermind friends what to do about it. And they basically said, we're back to spreadsheets. Nothing is working. So that's why I dove in and developed the solution that I did in Stock. But in the meantime, I realized that there was a lot of education missing within the space, which is why I like to do webinars and really explain how to properly structure your inventory and logistics systems to make sure that you avoid stocking out and overstocking as much as possible. All right, for staying till the end, I'm going to be sharing something with you. I will be sharing with you a DIY inventory spreadsheet. So if you're not currently using Stock or you're not currently using an inventory system, this is a good stepping stone to get you started to put your products into some order to be able to figure out how to manage your inventory and how to place your orders. And we've got the inventory minded marketing planner. This is good for everyone, whether you're using Stock, another system, or your own system. This helps you to figure out what your marketing, how your marketing is going to influence your inventory. Then there's the inventory workflow checklist we're going to be giving you. Helps you to coordinate your marketing, your inventory, and your cash flow elements of your business. And finally, our SOPs. These SOPs are built by a company called Scala, and it is essentially the process maps, the workflows, and the step-by-step actions to take to handle inventory management across all of your departments. So every department that is affected, the cash flow, the marketing, the inventory, all of those are part of that process. And we have these SOPs built to be able to run those processes within your business. All right, so let's get into why we came here. So first off, I'd like to talk about the 3 pillars of inventory management. Inventory management can be extremely overwhelming and extremely confusing at times. So to distill it down to the basics, you basically want to know how much inventory do I need, by when do I need it, and how am I going to get it there? So calculation, tracking, and logistics. So we're going to talk about some of the basics of those things. First of all, calculations. The way that we calculate inventory is by something called daily adjusted velocity. This is extremely important because if you get this number wrong, it's going to compound in the rest of your formula. So you want to know how much you're selling on a daily basis, right? How many units am I selling? If I'm selling 10 units a day for 30 days, I know I need 300 units to order to cover that period of time. So if I get that number wrong, it's going to have ripple effects throughout my entire business. I'm going to either under or overstock, and it's going to be expensive either way. All right, so the way that you break this down is you want to use averages rather than total monthly sales. You don't want to look at 30 days and say, okay, 30 days I sold 500 units, because you don't know exactly, because you don't know what data is involved in that 500 units, right? You don't know if you had sales spikes, you don't know if you had stock outs. So that's where the adjusted part of the sales velocity comes from. You're looking at your average and you're removing things like sales spikes, you're removing things like stock outs, you're removing deep discounts if you need to. And you can do this also looking at last year's sales. So you can say, okay, what did I sell during Christmas time? But you want to make sure that you remove the sales spikes and the stock outs, and then you can calculate your daily adjusted velocity for that period of time. Of course, growth trends can also be layered on top of this. The daily adjusted velocity, just think of it as true velocity, right? It's your true sales velocity. So this is why it matters to get this number right. There's a case study of someone who came to us, a 7-figure wholesale seller who came to us and had been using another software for many, many years. And from using that other software, he had come to realize that it was not effective with his best-selling products, his faster-moving products, and it was costing him money. So he built his own spreadsheet. So he was using a combination of a spreadsheet and a software, and he was still stocking out on his best sellers. So he tried so stocked out to see if it would make any difference, and was shocked at how much the tool was telling him to order. He thought it was way too high. And so he dug into the data, and it actually revealed why he was stocking out, and actually started to understand that the numbers were actually correct. So this is what was happening. He had the competing software telling him that he was selling 8 units a day. His spreadsheet said 10 units a day. SoStock said 15 units a day, which is almost double what the competing software was saying. With the other software, he would have been out in 4 days. He would have stocked out in 5 days with his custom spreadsheet. And if he were to place the correct order using SoStock's data, he would not have stocked out. So why do we have 3 different systems and they're all giving us different numbers? I like to say the numbers don't lie until they do, right? Someone is lying here. So here are the factors. 1, did you have stock, right? That's the first thing to look at. You can get this data historically via Amazon's API, and that's something that we pull via the API. So you can historically see whether you had stock or not. If you don't have an API pull, you can track it in a stock out log, which I recommend if you're not using another system to track your stock outs. And then number 2 is, was there an unusual interruption in your normal sales velocity? So this could be lower sales the day of a stock out, right? We always know that we're selling normally, and then the day of a stock out, we generally sell less than we would normally sell. Lower sales the day coming back in stock, or Amazon finds an extra unit or 2 during a stock out where you have all zeros and all of a sudden you have 1 sale on 1 day. Sales interrupted by a listing suspension. Obviously you have a bunch of inventory, but your listing was suspended, and because it was suspended, you didn't make any sales. Well, that should basically be treated as a stock out. So here's the major calculating error that was occurring, right? If you looked at what was happening in the competing software, you see all of the in-stock days, and then you see that there was 1 day. So this product is selling 100 units a day as a normal sales velocity. That's what should be the average. The daily adjusted sales velocity is 100. But this is what happens. 23 units sold versus 100. They stocked out. The in-stock, it's treated as an in-stock day. Then you have 2 full stock outs, 0 sales. Then you have 1 unit that was found. That was treated as an in-stock day. Then you have full stock outs. Then you have 13 units coming back into stock, again treated as an in-stock day. Versus us treating everything like a stock out day, right? If you take 1 unit and you say this is a full day's worth of sales when it should be 100, that's going to throw your averages off considerably. So you look here and we see the numbers are very different. We count 23 in-stock days versus 26 in-stock days. And the difference is that this competing software would have you order 90 units per day versus 100 units. That's 10 units that you're short in your order, compounding over whatever the size, however long your order is being placed for, 90 days perhaps. So that's where this becomes really apparent why these things are extremely important. All right, the next thing I wanted to jump into is, now that we understand daily adjusted velocity and how daily adjusted velocity is the foundation for everything that you're doing. The number one mistake that a lot of sellers were making beyond that, they could have their formula right and they order everything just right based on past data. But what about that future planning? What about the marketing plans that you have? There's something that I started pushing around called inventory-minded marketing. And that's just this idea that you can't market in a vacuum. You have to work in tandem. The marketing team has to let the inventory team know what it's doing. We can no longer just focus on our best sellers. We need to market aggressively across the entire catalog. Inventory needs to give data to marketing, and marketing needs to give data to inventory. So we're going to talk about the first coordination point, the vital marketing coordination points with inventory. The marketing team needs to give the inventory team a marketing plan to vet out before they actually execute. And what that looks like is, again, I said I would send this to you guys. So what that looks like is you've got this planner and you want to see what are the velocity calculations that are important to you. Are you looking at last year's sales? Are you doing a calculation where you're looking at the average of 30, 60, and 90-day velocities? Are you doing something else? What about trend? Are we adding our trend to our calculation? If we have trended 3% increase from last year to this year, are we going to be adding that? Are we doing additional sales growth by doing a PPC campaign that we think will increase our sales by an additional 10%? All of this data should be given to the inventory team. Are there any lightning deals that are planned? When are they going to happen? And how many units? And then lastly, seasonal sales spikes. Do we plan on an increase in our inventory or in our sales during a specific time period? Right, all of this data goes to your marketing, goes from your marketing team to your inventory team. This is one of those things that you should be getting into place and should start using on a regular basis. All right, and this is just a win from one of the people that started applying these systems, the sales velocity systems into his practice. Says he features like ignoring stock out so sales velocity does not decrease. This is huge as it makes sales velocity so much more accurate. I've already made thousands of dollars more in profit thanks to SoStock. So these things work. These are some of these aha moments that people realize that their stockouts aren't being calculated properly. And once they start calculating them properly, they can really laser in on the correct order size. All right, we're going to talk about tracking. I know that we had a couple of other touch points for coordinating inventory and marketing. I'm going to save that towards the end, but we will be getting back to that. So tracking is very important to your business. If you know how much to order, but you don't know by when, you're going to have some problems. And a lot of the time when sellers have some sort of a system, the reason that they stock out is because they get distracted. They forget to check and they find that they should have checked 2 weeks ago and should have placed their order 2 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden they're playing catch up and they're using air freight and they're doing all sorts of things to try to stay in stock when all they needed was to track their inventory better. One of the questions we get is, where is my stuff? Where is my stuff? Knowing when to place the order. You can only know when to place the order if you know where your stuff is. We thought that initially the problem was only forecasting, but we got a lot of people saying, I need to know where my stuff is. So we're going to talk about several vital ways of looking at and tracking your inventory. And these are systems that you can, this is a SoStock example, but you can use things like Trello. You can use Airtable spreadsheets. This is just the way that we look at it within SoStock. All right, so this is an order tracker. You would have different columns for each section. And in our system, we use a lead time and everything moves across this progress based on that lead time. So in production to en route to third-party warehouse to FBA check-in. And so you want to know where everything is at. You want to have an idea of when is it leaving production? When can I actually ship this so that I am ready with my freight forwarder? I can contact my freight forwarder early to get my inventory shipped. when is it then going to arrive at its final destination? This left production at what point? When is it going to land? And tracking this all in an order tracker gives you kind of a bird's eye view of everything. You know, you can color code your suppliers. You can note which method of shipping. Where is it going? Is it going to the warehouse? Is it going to Amazon? And your PO numbers and everything that's in the order. So that's the way I recommend tracking your orders. One of the ways of tracking your orders. Another way is inventory on hand. This is essentially looking at every single SKU and deciding and tracking how much inventory is in which area. How much FBA inventory and in which marketplace, how much warehouse stock, what is your total stock, what is inbound to FBA, what's inbound to your warehouse, and what is your total stock count. Then you have inbound shipments. Inbound shipments, this is everything that is currently either in production or on the way via ocean, air, whatever method. Then you have warehouse levels. Warehouse levels shows you what's in every single warehouse, what inventory and how much of it. Then lastly, orders within the next 30 days. You want to know what's on deck. What are you supposed to be ordering within the next 30 days to make sure that you don't stock out? All right, so in order to figure all this out, in order to figure out when you actually need to place your order, it's a fairly simple calculation. It involves buffer stock and lead time, and we'll touch on what each of those are. So buffer stock plus lead time equals your reorder point. So buffer stock is kind of like it's a false zero, or it's an extra cushion that is set so that you don't ever run out. It's kind of like when that empty light comes on, you're driving your car and the empty light comes on and you know that you have to go get some gas, you still have a little bit extra in the tank. That is what buffer stock is. It's the extra in the tank to hold you over until that new inventory arrives, right? So some of the guidelines on buffer stock, this is getting a bit more challenging to manage just due to the fact that we have restock limits. But one of the guidelines is the longer the lead time or transfer time, the higher the buffer stock, because the more things that can go wrong along the way, the more cushion you might need. So just one thing to keep in mind, if someone orders domestically, they might only need a couple weeks of buffer stock, but someone orders and it takes 90 days for something to arrive, they might need 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, depending on your business, right? Currently now to consider, you want to have a buffer stock at FBA and you want to have a separate buffer stock at your warehouse. You can no longer keep all of your buffer stock at FBA. You want to have a buffer stock for each. And then setting your buffer stock in days is better than setting it in units. That's important to know. You can set it in units, and a lot of people do set it in units, but as your sales velocity fluctuates, those units, the value in days of those units can shrink. So 300 units of buffer stock might be 10 days on your high period and 30 days on your slower period. So setting it in days instead and having it be compared to what your daily adjusted velocity is and having it fluctuate is a lot better in terms of how to manage your inventory. And then lastly, buffer stock is important at Amazon, FBA specifically due to Amazon's geo ranking algorithm. This is something where if you don't have enough inventory, Amazon is not going to feel comfortable that they're going to be able to hit that 2-day prime, and they're going to start creeping your listing down the rankings in the areas where they can't fulfill. So maybe you're in California and you search California and you're just fine in the rankings, but in Kansas, someone searches for your product and you're lower in the rankings for them because its algorithm is discouraging them from buying your products, right? So keeping enough buffer stock is important. A good rule of thumb is 30 days of buffer stock, and some people are trying to do even more than that, 45 days, because of Amazon's check-in times being so slow. And we will talk about the check-in times. It's not always feasible. People with oversized products have gotten their limits slashed to even below 30 days, but as close as you can get to the 30-day buffer stock would be a good rule of thumb. All right, now lead times and transfer times. So lead times and transfer times, these are two different, we use them kind of as meaning two different things. Lead time, we like to refer to a lead time as, say, what it takes for you to order your product and for you to move it into Amazon, and then transfer time meaning from the point that you need your warehouse to ship your order from their warehouse into FBA, that would be a transfer time. A lot of delays are occurring. So the most important thing that I can say about lead times and transfer times is to speak to your suppliers, your freight forwarders, your warehouses, and understand what the current transfer time is. Don't assume that last month's transfer time or lead time or shipping time or production time is this month's. There's a lot of raw material shortages. There's a lot of chaos. We all know about that. So check in frequently with your vendors and find out what the true data is for right now. All right, so just to kind of sum up the reorder point. So if you have, let's say you decide that you're going to use a 30-day buffer stock, and it takes, wishful thinking, it takes 60 days for your product to go from ordered to arrived. That's your lead time. You do 30 plus 60, and that means that you have to order your inventory 90 days before you stock out. So of course you should be planning on knowing when that stock out is going to occur. If you're planning on if you want to know when your stock out is going to occur, we recommend building what we call the inventory timeline. This is something that hasn't been in broad practice, and I find it's extremely necessary. Actually, when people ask me what my favorite feature is, or what the feature that I'm most proud of in SoStocked is, I say it's the inventory timeline. It's funny, people think, oh, it's got to be the forecasting, or it's got to be, various different things, but it is the inventory timeline because it helps you to visualize everything. There's a huge problem where people don't like inventory and their heads start to spin because there's a lot of numbers and a lot of different things happening. The inventory timeline takes all of the chaos and the craziness that's happening across your entire supply chain and actually puts it in a form that is digestible and understandable. So even if you did this on a spreadsheet, what you want is you want dates, you want your daily velocity, you want your FBA inventory, your warehouse inventory, and then anything that is going to actually be arriving, going to be transferred, have to be ordered, etc. So that's one of the most valuable things I think anyone could do, is to build out an inventory timeline. All right, little bit of case study in terms of tracking and the importance of tracking and what it's meaning to your actual bottom line dollars. So we had someone who had a pattern of ordering too late and often was placing orders via air shipment to avoid stocking out. And it wasn't anything except that just forgot doing a million things. So what happened was that because tracking went in and alerts went in and understanding when to order and putting buffer stocks in place, accurate lead times, the seller went from paying $1.20 per unit in shipping to only 45 cents per unit. It's a 63% reduction in shipping cost. And over the entire catalog, saved $150,000 in shipping costs. There's a lot of money that can be saved if you actually get inventory management right. And it's one of those things we like to put off till the end. The last thing that you want to have to do, you say you don't have time, we hear that a lot. Oh, I don't have time for a new system. I don't have time to learn it. We don't have time to figure it out. You don't have time to lose $150,000. If you look back at last year, what possibly, you could have recovered in getting a good inventory system in, it's extremely, extremely important. And it's what I realized in 2018. And one of the big reasons why we were losing so much money was all the air shipments and the missed ordering dates, right? The missed reorder points. All right, here's another. SoStocked helped me to streamline my processes and get a real-time visibility. No more expensive air shipments. So this is something that's very, very common, these air shipments. And these air shipments, you're gonna save a lot of money if you can find ways to stop being forced into air shipments, right? Sometimes it happens, but if there are ways to avoid it, we want to be using those. Okay, and then lastly, we've got logistics. This is fast becoming my favorite subject. It's the most annoying and frustrating subject, but I have a lot of tips that I can share that I'm excited to share. So the more that I learn about logistics, the more that I unpack this subject, I am learning more ways that we can be more efficient and save more money on this line. So first of all, the logistics of the post-COVID world, we know that supply chain is crazy. We know that restock limits are crazy. The smart sellers are rearranging their logistics to prepare for any problem that may arise, and they have to be flexible. Flexibility is vitally important. So first of all, let's talk about the problems. First, we have restock limits, then we have supply chain issues. So we're going to address restock limits first, because I think that any webinar that talks about this subject needs to address restock limits. So Amazon never intended to be a storage facility. It always intended to be a distribution center. They're trying to get back to their roots of being a distribution center. And for a distribution center, the most important thing is sell-through. Amazon's #1 inventory metric is sell-through. If their #1 metric is sell-through, it's important to understand what does sell-through actually mean to Amazon. So here is the definition from Seller Central of what sell-through means to Amazon. They say your FBA rolling 90-day sell-through rate is the number of your units sold and shipped over the past 90 days divided by the average number of units available at fulfillment centers during that time. So that's a whole bunch of words. Let's look at what that actually means. So units sold or shipped within 90 days would be at the top, and that would be divided by your average units available, and that's your sell-through. So you have 9,000 units, for example, sold 9,000 units in 90 days. All right, great. Now, what if we had only carried 3,000 units total? That's a monthly turnover rate. We're turning over our inventory every month, and that gives us a sell-through rate per Amazon of 3. So if you're wondering, when you look at your inventory performance index and you see that number next to sell-through, this is how it's calculated, right? A quarterly turnover rate, which would be a #1, would be closer to 9,000 units sold, 9,000 units carried. All right, so let's talk about utilization. Utilization is the other factor that we're all very conscious of due to restock limits. Utilization is calculated this way. FBA available inventory plus all incoming shipments, which would be working shipments, in transit, receiving, etc., plus unfulfillable inventory, and that equals your utilization quantity. So most people already know if you've got a working shipment, a shipment stuck in working, and you're not using it, that deleting it will fast help you to improve your utilization. But there are other factors for utilization, and there are other factors affecting your restock limits. So pending removal orders and reserved inventory, Amazon says that these are not factored into your utilization, but we have found that not to be true. Removal orders and reserved inventory are contributing to your utilization. So once those removal orders clear out, you should see an increase in your utilization. And so if you're having a hard time understanding why your utilization is as high as it is, start looking at your reserved inventory, which will include inventory that's in receiving and removal orders as well. All right, so to see the relationship, we look at sell-through and we have what we've sold, and then we have our utilization, right? What we have had available on average. And here's this case study. So focusing on, you have a graph in your Seller Central account. You can focus on improving your sell-through. That would be a good exercise to do, is start tracking your sell-through. And this was one seller who was able to take his sell-through from 1 to 2, right? So that's quarterly to about every month and a half, able to turn over his inventory in just a couple of months. So it's something that you can turn around and improve very, very quickly if you really start focusing on it. So if you want to see your restock limits potentially increasing, then focus on your sell-through rate and follow along on your graphs within your Seller Central inventory dashboard. All right, so let's talk about those levers that you can pull with restock limits. How do you avoid restock limit crashes? So first and foremost, I like to talk about the logistics problems, the problems in terms of logistics, because we don't want to run out of stock. That's the worst thing that you can possibly do. The golden rule that I have is never let anyone have all your stuff. You would think it would be pretty obvious, but this is something that does not necessarily get followed, right? Your supplier says your shipments, your inventory is available. And so what do? You go ahead and you put everything on a boat. Then the boat gets stuck at port for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, and you have no inventory. That's one of the common problems. So how do you restructure it so that you can prevent that from happening? My suggestion, placing larger orders. So have your supplier, make an agreement with your supplier. You're going to place an order that's larger than it usually is. You're going to pay for the first payment for the entire order. So if you pay 30% and then 70% upon release of your bill of lading, if you're doing that, then you place your order, it's a little bit larger, you pay them the down payment, and then you ship out your ocean freight and you only pay them for your ocean freight. You have them hold any excess inventory that doesn't fit in your container, have them hold that just in case you need to airship it. You don't airship it unless you absolutely need to. You don't want to incur that extra cost. You have them leave it, and usually they won't charge you for it. They'll usually hold inventory for a little while without charging you. So you are saving in terms of the storage costs, and you're also saving in terms of your cash flow is a little bit more comfortable. You've placed a larger order, but you're not having to pay that final 70% until you ship that order out. And then of course you want to have a 3PL as well as FBA. All right, so what if you do stock out, right? What if you do stock out? What are you going to do? How do you keep Amazon from completely tanking your restock limits? So you have put everything on a boat, it got stuck in the port, and now you're stocking out of your best-selling product, and you want to make sure that you have restock limits available and storage space available for when it actually arrives. So the first thing would be to switch to FBM. Don't let Amazon be your only distribution center. This goes back to don't let anyone have all of your stuff, right? Goes back to the golden rule. Never let anyone have all your stuff. So you want to have your own FBM fulfillment. You want to make sure that you're able to fulfill those sales, whether Amazon checks your stuff in or not. So there are a couple of things that you can do. You can send, when you send inventory to Amazon, if you are holding inventory at your 3PL, you would send your inventory to your FBM facility. If you don't have an FBM facility now, my recommendation is to get an FBM facility before Black Friday, because Amazon is having a lot of trouble getting things checked in, and you want to have that backup. The other reason why it is important to set up your FBM is that FBM sales, they contribute to your restock limits. So if Amazon sees sales coming through, they're not going to completely tank your restock limits. They're going to count those FBM sales towards your restock when you get your inventory back in stock at FBA. One other note, so we talked about the system where you keep inventory at your supplier, you send most of your stuff via your ocean freight, and then you send anything that you have to via your air freight. Treat that same system for your ground shipping. Your 3PL will hold excess inventory. You'll send everything LTL except for a little bit that you've held back. And then your small parcel delivery shipment, if you need to do small parcel delivery, it gets checked in much, much faster than LTL. And you want to use small parcel delivery only if you have to, but you'll have that as a backup, and that can go to FBA or it can go to FBM. All right, the other thing to do if you find yourself stocking out and you don't want your restock limits to tank is to use excess inventory from other SKUs to run a flash sale to help boost your limits. The great thing about storage type limits versus ASIN type limits, we used to have ASIN type limits, right? If you all remember ASIN type limits, they restricted your inventory based on each ASIN. And when you stocked out of an ASIN, you couldn't recover that very easily. Well, now we have storage type limits. If you stock out of one product, you can use excess inventory to run flash sales to increase your restock limits so that when you get your top seller back in stock, it won't be quite so difficult for you. Then we have temporarily borrowing your sales velocity from other channels by switching to multi-channel fulfillment. So if you've got Shopify sales that come in through Amazon and are fulfilled by Amazon are also going to count towards your restock limits. So those are the 3 triggers to pull. You would want to do FBM. You want to run flash sales with any excess inventory that you have. And that can be excess inventory in FBA or excess inventory that you have at your warehouse. And then you want to turn on your multi-channel fulfillment at Amazon and have those sales also add to your limits, your restock limits. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the vital coordination points that Amazon or that your inventory team now has to give to your marketing team. This is all regarding stockouts and your slow sellers. And some of these are going to sound really very similar, but I'll explain the differences. Okay, so you have your stockout risk report. Your stockout risk report is going to indicate what's going to stock out, how many days of stockout will there be, because if you're going to stock out for 100 days, you're going to behave very differently than if you're going to stock out for 3 days, right? You can tend to avoid a 3-day stock out, but 100-day stock out, that's a completely different thing. So you need to be able to inventory should be able to send these reports to the marketing team, because there's no reason for the marketing team to start running a coupon discount campaign on a product that's about to stock out. So these reports should go to your marketing team. Another report that would go to your marketing team would be a slow seller report. Slow seller report is important to know whether you want to move a product or you want to continue to stock it. So it's something that falls in not quite the liquidation range, but it's not up to your level of what you consider successful. So maybe that's between 5 and 20 sales a day, right? And that's the range that you chose for your own inventory. So you would find those products and give that list to your marketing team, and your marketing team could then know that they need to increase the sales velocity of these products and make them a more viable product. It's just more data for the marketers who sometimes get tunnel vision and get focused on driving sales and driving revenue with their best sellers. Well, now they have a whole list of products that are kind of on the precipice of either being losers or turned into something that is extremely successful. Then you have the liquidation report. This is the losers report. This product is just not going. It's very slow selling. It's dragging us down. It's taking up storage space, and I'm just not going to stock it again. So why don't we just get rid of it as quickly as possible and move on? So that would be this report. Maybe it's less than 5 units a day, and you decide, okay, and we're going to look at this and consider this is a liquidation product. And by liquidation, I don't necessarily mean liquidating with Amazon. Liquidating could mean using it in your flash sales. I would prefer using it in flash sales because that increases your sales velocity and it helps your restock limits more than just removing it via liquidation or via a removal order. All right, then FBA overstock report. The FBA overstock report, some of the products that we have on the other reports could show up here, but also best sellers could show up here. Successful products could show up here. This gives a list to your marketing team so that they can see which products they have excess inventory. And if they have excess inventory, well, then they can start thinking of ways that they can increase the ranking. Inventory can be an asset or a liability. The longer it sits there, the longer this overstock sits there, the more fees it's incurring and the less profit margin. But at the same time, you can look at it as an asset where you say, great, we have an extra 200 units of this product. We're just going to go and do a campaign and buy ranking, not via any dubious or, or against TOS means, but by successfully marketing the product even more aggressively than you have before, just to be able to get it possibly into a completely new range, and basically take advantage of the extra inventory that you have and use that as an asset towards improving. So an example would be looking at your days of supply on Amazon, right? You have 90 days or more of supply on Amazon. Maybe it's 60 days. 60 days might be a better number now that we have these restock limits. But that's the overstock report. Okay, I'm going to jump in real quick. I saw that there are a couple of questions. I have someone who said, is there a better way to set the lead time and buffer stock if Amazon has specific limit of number of units that can be set to FBA? So inside of SoStocked, you have the ability to set your restock limits, to add your restock limits. And so you can see it will actually, if you choose, there's a selection called as needed, and you'll be able to play with the formulas. And if you have to kind of work your way down in terms of lowering your buffer stock, you'll see how that shows up, basically how often are you sending inventory in. If you want to send inventory in, once a month, you might have to, or once a week, you might have to put less buffer stock than if you wanted to do once a month. So yeah, I would definitely say look into the restock limits feature, if I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. And then where can we find the inventory timeline in SoStock? So the inventory timeline in SoStock, when you go to the forecasting page, you open up you open up the product and all of the details show up. On one side is all the calculation variables where you can add your marketing plans and all of those things. And then on the right side, you're going to see the inventory timeline for each of your individual products. Okay. Good. Okay, so this is my favorite subject right now. I call this section What the Truck. And we're basically just going to talk a little bit about the Amazon ecosystem and the important things that you need to know to be able to make the right decision for how you get your inventory into Amazon right now. Okay, so we all know that there are trucking delays right now, but what exactly is happening, right? What is happening is Amazon's got a specific way that they handle things, and everything was working great. And then they started experiencing problems. There were backlogs, labor problems that were occurring. But in general, they launched something called Amazon Freight. They launched it a couple of years ago. And they bought a bunch of trailers. So they have these trailers and they let trucking companies use these trailers. These trailers are filled with Amazon stuff. The Amazon stuff is brought in to the Amazon fulfillment center, and then it's unloaded. They drop that trailer and they pick up an empty one, and it was working great. But then what happens if those trailers don't actually get unloaded? They drop the trailer, there's no empty ones for them to pick up, and they just leave without an empty trailer. That's what has been happening. Your stuff has been getting dropped off and it's not been getting unloaded. Part of the problem is that Amazon they're really under fire for their labor practices. They have had a lot of labor turnover between July and October. They had 350,000 people who started working for them and then left within days or weeks of their start date. So they've got a lot of labor problems happening right now, and they're having a hard time unloading those things. So you've got Amazon Freight and you've got Amazon partner carriers, and they have specific contracts with Amazon where they are required to drop their trailers. They're not allowed to unload their trailers. They're required to drop them off. So that's anyone who is within the Amazon ecosystem. The Amazon trucking ecosystem has that. They are contractually bound to drop off their trailers. Whereas outside of Amazon, the non-Amazon partner carriers, they are able really to pick up whatever, to drop off their stuff. They say, we're not dropping our trailer off. We're opening our trailer up and we're unloading it into the loading dock. So even if they are getting later delivery times, those delivery times mean that your stuff is actually going to get checked in. Whereas someone who is an Amazon partner carrier may be getting a delivery time that is earlier than the non-partner carrier, but you get a delivery time and then you have 5 weeks waiting for your stuff to check in. If you were ever wondering if there is a reason why it takes forever for inventory to check in, this is why, because of Amazon's system. And Amazon partner carrier used to be the best choice. It's the cheapest choice, but it's not necessarily the best choice anymore. It used to be, and it could be in 3 months. And 3 months from now, they could work out all the kinks. That's why it's very, very important to make your vendors your best friends, your freight forwarders, your 3PLs. I learned all this data from our 3PL owner who does our stuff. And he let me know all of this stuff. But mostly what we've been doing is that we've all been, filling out the information on Amazon's Seller Central, creating the labels, sending it over to our warehouses, and then they just send it out. They don't take the time to call everyone and say, hey, you could send this a better way, because they're just trying to keep their heads above water. But you start talking to some of these guys and you start learning these things. So Amazon non-partner carriers are faster right now. That's the word on the street, is Amazon non-partner carriers are faster, specifically because of the way that these trucking contracts are worked out. So that is extremely vital to know. It says the USPS slowdown. I don't want to go much into that, except that UPS is now taking more trucks to deliver their stuff. Their stuff is slow. What I want to talk about instead, which is not on here, is about trailer numbers. And let me just stop sharing this for a second. I want to talk about trailer numbers real quick. Okay, so the thing about trailer numbers, and I just want to make sure, sometimes our stuff goes missing, and our stuff goes missing for various different reasons. It could be that it's in the trailer yard and it's just sitting there like we talked about, but it could also be that it was shipped to the wrong place. And there is no way for them to find your stuff easily, especially before Christmas. If they don't find it before Christmas, it's going to take a while to find some of this stuff. And we often wonder, when Amazon says our stuff is lost, what does that actually mean? And can I do anything about that? So there's a story that was told to me. This is Sebastiano, who runs Amazing Logistics, where we have some of our inventory. And he said that there was an inventory that was supposed to go to Nevada, went to California, and they were actually able to track it down. The only way they're able to track inventory down, if you send a truckload, is by the trailer number. So what that means is that when your 3PL goes to load the trailer, maybe they've got a couple of different clients and they're loading all that stuff, sending it to Amazon. Each trailer has a number. It is the only way that Amazon can track down your inventory when it has not been unloaded. So if you're trying to figure out where your inventory went, you can send that inventory to Amazon and they can locate then your inventory. They don't have X-ray vision. They can't look into the trailer and see which trailer your stuff is in of all the trailers that are sitting there, but they can look at and find a trailer number. The thing that for this particular circumstance, what was done was they located the trailer number. They said, okay, we're going to look this up. Oh yes, it was supposed to go to Nevada. It went to California. Well, when it arrived in California, they opened it up and they said, this is not our stuff. And then they closed it and they set it aside and they moved on. And so finding the trailer number, they actually then were able to get authorization to unload this Nevada inventory into the California warehouse. And that took a inventory from being lost indefinitely to being loaded and made available and checked in. So call your 3PLs, ask them to start tracking trailer numbers, and will help to make your lost inventory more easily located. All right. Let's see. Okay. So let me know if you have questions. We're going to jump into questions in a minute. But again, I wanted to remind you about the special gift for staying till the end. Hopefully you got some value from this. If you have any questions, let me know. But I'd like to show you some of the systems that you can put in place to improve and start implementing some of these inventory things as quickly as possible. I know that some of you are SoStock users. Maybe some of these features you are familiar with. Other people are not SoStock users, but maybe might be interested. So customizable forecast per SKU, you need to be able to forecast per SKU. We offer forecasting per SKU, which includes using restock limits. There was an anonymous question about restock limits. Factoring your restock limits into your forecasting. You can do weighted averages, you can do adjusted velocity, manual velocity, last year's sales, trends, sales spikes, stock outs, including MCF sales as well. Any additional sales growth that you want to add for, say, PPC campaigns. And then here's the inventory timeline. This is what it looks like. It gives a calculation of everything that needs to happen. We even do blackout dates. So during Chinese New Year, if you can't send inventory in, it will help to factor that into your forecasting and your reorder point. Order and transfer tracker, like we talked about. Customizable inventory dashboards. We have about 80 different columns that can be hidden, can be sorted, can be filtered, and to create all of the data points that you're interested in looking at. PO and transfer creation. So you can, with the click of a couple of buttons, send a PO to your suppliers for all the inventory that you need to order for a specific order period. And then what is this? Oh yeah, just a bunch of people's feedback. One of the things that we are most proud of is how we're involved with the community and how much we've been able to work with them to make a system that works well, getting rid of spreadsheets, forecasting that is accurate, finally something that's accurate, solving 99% of inventory challenges, making more money. The reason that I started doing this is to help myself and then others to make and keep more money in their Amazon businesses, cutting down inventory from hours to a few minutes, being able to track all phases of your inventory, listening, and being able to make advancements. So if you guys have an idea and you think that the software should do that, we want to know that. We have been fortunate enough to use the insight of a lot of really smart sellers to make a tool that thinks like a seller and benefits sellers. And then our support team is super helpful. People love our support team. So if you have not yet tried SoStock, the first month is $79 to try the software. And what we're doing on this call today is we're doing skip the line priority access. So what that means is that you will be able to get kind of white glove service where you can book an appointment whenever you need to get onto a call with us. I'm personally doing inventory consultation as part of this. So if you want an inventory consultation, I normally don't do this, but I'll jump on a call with you, and we'll probably do it for the first 5 people. We'll jump on a call and I'll talk through your inventory. If you need help with anything, with setting up your system, any feedback that you need on, or just a sounding board on how to organize your logistics, how to better manage your cash flow as far as inventory. That's what we would be discussing on that inventory consultation. White glove migration, that would be moving all of your current systems over into the new SoStock system. And that includes helping you to set up your forecasts, and also to set up your custom dashboard so that you can see the data that you want to see with a click of a button. All right, I'm going to go to Q&A. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to open up this Q&A and see. Okay, let's see. Fantastic. Eilette, hi, Eilette. So nice to see you. Okay, so a couple of questions. We've got As Far says, Amazon partner carriers are way cheaper. So you suggest we go with non-Amazon, which would charge us a lot. So how to overcome this issue? So you can stick with Amazon partner carrier if you can afford to wait for the carrier to arrive. You might have to supplement with these small parcel delivery. If you have to supplement with small parcel delivery, just know that if you're trying to find a way to, even though it is more expensive, if you're trying to find a way to speed it up and you would rather pay, going non-Amazon partner carrier is more reliable and can get your inventory checked in faster. So it's just a kind of give and take. Some people are willing to wait and they have the ability and the restock limits to be able to do that. And some people are not, and it's costing them sales. And rather than stocking out, they would rather pay extra to get their inventory in sooner and in on time, so that they don't miss out on sales. Because you just have to weigh, am I going to make more money by stocking out, or am I going to make more money by paying the extra amount? I mean, if your profit margins are that slim that you can't ship non-Amazon partner carrier, it might be something that you have to kind of look at across your supply chain, and how can you further cut prices, which is a whole other topic, which is something that I've become very obsessed with recently. And that in 2022, we will be talking all about optimization of profitability. So hopefully that answers your question there. It's not fun. It is what we've been forced into doing due to restock limits, but those are the options that we kind of have. Okay, restock limits only seem to increase during the peak promo period we were in versus in advance of the promo period. Doesn't allow us enough time to get product into FBA. How can SoStock help with that? So I can't increase your restock limits. We do have, let me stop sharing. We did share a tip that was working in third quarter that you can still try. It is, if you go to sostock.com/restock, you'll see a video there from July. And there was a hack for increasing restock limits. It has to do with the multi-channel fulfillment. I won't go into details since it's all laid out there, but people were seeing increases in restock limits overnight by sending emails to the multi-channel fulfillment team. That requires that you do your multi-channel fulfillment through Amazon, and not everyone was getting approved, and less people are getting approved now than were before. But it is worth reaching out to them and trying to find out if they're still open to offering that. SoStock can help with being able to show you the frequency that you need to be sending things in on. So if your restock limits are what they are, you're gonna be able to isolate those things that you can move. Like I said, those reports, the overstock reports, the slow seller reports, the liquidation reports. So going through and making sure that you're carrying the things that are going to be turning over. That's first and foremost, isolating those types of things. And then in terms of restock limits and using the restock limits calculation in your forecasting, you place all of your settings and then you put your restock limits in. It's going to tell you how much of which products to send in. So if you have a bestseller that's selling a certain amount and you never want to stock out on that, you're going to want to utilize the restock limits calculation, and it's going to tell you these are the items that you need to send in these quantities, and this is how often to send it. So that's what the restock limits calculation does. It doesn't increase your restock limits. It helps you to know how much do I send and by when and how often, right? How often do I need to send it? If you need to send twice a month, and that's what your restock limits are requiring you to do, then that's what you need to send. But it's a two-step thing. It's what inventory can I move out? You know, am I fully lean? And is all of this inventory going to be turning over very rapidly? And if not, how can I strip that out of my inventory? And then part two is making sure that your restock limit calculation helps to show you how much to send and how often to send it so that you don't stock out. Okay, good questions. Fantastic. Okay, we will just end with this. If you are interested in signing up for SoStock, giving it a try, sostock.com, go visit sostock.com. If you have any questions for me, if you have anything that you want to know, we'll be doing some what we call office hours. So if questions come in, I will go on to a Facebook Live on once a week or maybe every 2 weeks and answer questions that you guys ask me. So if you're curious about things and want to know about them, then you can go to sostock.com/connect and you can reach out to me directly and we can get those questions answered. So thank you guys so much for coming. I know we're a little past the hour. I will send out those freebies either this afternoon or tomorrow. Hope you guys have a fantastic third quarter sales season and hope to see some of you at the Titan event, the FBA Live. I will be speaking at FBA Live. I'm very, very excited about that. We're also sponsoring. So if you're going to the Titan event in Orlando next week, come and say hi to me. I would love to see you. All right. Thank you, Karen. Hi. Thanks, guys. All right. Bye, guys.